On today's episode of the LifeKraft Podcast, we have the financially savvy Adele Barnard. She is a financial planner and educator from South Africa with a passion for helping people develop a healthy money mindset. She is making strides in her industry by making money matters simple and understandable. And in this episode, we dive into the importance of having a money mindset, budgeting, savings, investing. We bust through the trap of the Instagram culture, and she shares her favorite tips and resources to help you create a happy and healthy relationship with money. Are you ready to be inspired? Tag at the LifeKraft and at Adele.Barnard and share a screenshot on your stories with us of your biggest takeaway from this episode. So if we had to look in terms of budget, how do you think, because I know some people have a love-hate relationship when it comes to budget. Some avoid it completely. Others rely on a budget, but it's not necessarily that they have financial freedom either. So I think a budget is something that you've got to understand. It's a mindset that you've got to go into, and to have I don't know what to call it, the discipline to stick to your budget. How do you get into that mindset? What is something that people can implement to really just, whether you're avoidant of it or whether you use it, to really optimize something like a budget? And how can they fit that into their everyday life? So it's not just something that they glance at once a month, but it's actually part of their everyday life.
You're so right. It needs to be part of your everyday life. So for me, once you start working, the retail account companies and the bank wants to offer you a credit card and all of those. And I mean, we are bombarded with ads and emails. I mean, if you wake up in the morning, the amount of emails you just get from retailers that want you to come and spend your money there, it's quite a lot. So I think for me, it's being intentional with your money. It's being, am I going to use this now for instant gratification, or am I rather going to save it and pay it towards debt or my bond or whatever the case might be, and make my money work for me? In South Africa, our landscape, so the consumer is under pressure. And at this point in time, we are not a savings nation at all. We don't have a savings culture. We've got more of a debt culture. I mean, in 2019, the stats, our savings stats is minus 0.2%. So it just shows you. And I don't think that, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. So it's either financial literacy we don't have, people, or the consumer just doesn't physically have money to save. So there's a lot of reasons, but my ultimate goal is, and I always say, if someone that knows the Minister of Education, put me in touch with her, because we actually need to know how finances and taxes and those type of things work from school, matric, already. Yeah. And I think that would make a big difference. So with budgeting, and you're right, we're in denial. So I always say you need to identify your money personality. I'm a big fan of that. So I say, are you a saver? Are you a spender? Are you a avoider? Or are you a money monk? So the irony is I identify as a spender.
Yeah.
And I'm trying
Me too. I saw your post. Absolutely.
And I'm trying to force myself to become more of a saver. And I always say, even if it's 5 minutes a day, follow finance pages on Twitter or read on News24, and even the jargon is intimidating in the beginning, but the more you read, the more you know. And that is the entire thing with budgeting, because all of a sudden you just see all these debit orders go off, and you don't actually realize, oh my word, I'm spending so much money. Is the income and the expenses, are they chatting to one another? Is it not a situation of income is here and expenses are there? So, and I always say my motto is wherever we can save 50 or 100 Rand, which sounds insignificant, times it by 12, and we can use that money so much better. So it's a constant thing. And I always advise, find what works for you. Some people prefer having an app for their budgeting. Some prefer old school book. Some like Excel sheets. Depends. Find what works for you and implement it accordingly. And don't just leave it. For myself, something I recently did, I have way too many storage plans for my devices. And then someone assisted me to utilize that, because it's, like I said, the 50 Rand, it sounds insignificant, but I can use that towards something else. And even there's various things the cell phone contracts, various things that we get tied up into so quickly, that we just don't think and have the value of our money anymore.
If we had to look at starting a budget, if someone has not started a budget at all, if they're those typical people who just cruise along, they go into debt, they use their credit card, which I know you mention a lot, whether they have the money or not because they have the debt, so they try and use that. How can they start? Because the most daunting thing, and I know out of my personal experience as well, is that first initial look. That first initial look of what is really going on, because you're kind of in denial for quite a long time. And I think especially in this environment that we're living in now with a pandemic, a lot of people are just trying to survive. So they don't really want to take a look at what is going on, what debt they have occurred, what is really needed in a month or not, from apps to, like you say, cell phone contracts and debt. How can they start? What's the best thing to do just to start becoming more aware of how it looks and to get into that budget mindset?
The first thing, and you said it earlier on one of my posts, I said the curse of credit. Stay away from debt as far as possible. That's my first advice or tip that I can give someone. You obviously get good debt, like if you've got a bond or something in that line, that's completely different. But don't make use of credit. Unfortunately, we are not informed enough, I think, about all the admin fees and the interest and that type of thing. And then we end up in the debt trap. One of my favorite quotes is from Albert Einstein, and he says, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. I've posted this as well. Those who understand it earn it, and those who don't pay it. And you don't want to fall in the latter category where you have to pay interest. And it's so easily accessible. Like you get SMSs and phone calls of various companies that want to offer you personal loans and credit cards from multiple of the big institutions. And if you can stay away from that, but once again, it's not a one size fits all, especially in South Africa with our skewed economy and landscape. So that would be my first tip. Then if you have debt already, the best will be work out a plan of action. Like look at it, like you said, and you have that fright that you see, this is what my financial situation looks like. But no one else is going to get you out of it. Only you can get yourself out of that and work out a plan. Chat to your financial planner, chat to me, like that we can work out a plan for you to get out of debt. There are various debt settling techniques and those type of things that you can follow. And I always say, and you're going to love this one, a financial plan is like a diet. Like you don't, or not a diet, but like a healthy lifestyle. You don't start today and tomorrow you lose 10 kilograms. It's not how it works. And that's the same with your finances.
Amen. Preach.
It takes time and work and effort, and you have to put in what you put in, you're going to get out at the end of the day. Yeah. And that exact same principle applies to your finances.
I love that.
I think that is my advice. And get rid of all the bad things in your budget. And that's why I say print a bank statement, 3 months bank statement, scan it, scrutinize the statement and see where your money is going to. What is necessities versus luxuries, and take it from there. Because I think for some of us, we just want to live our best Instagram lives. And it's at the end of the day at our own expense, actually, literally, to keep up with the Joneses.
And that is quite a thing. And I see it in our culture, in South Africa and across the world. We really get sucked into that, looking a certain way, acting a certain way, meanwhile back home, it's that whole Instagram culture. And that's how so much debt occurs. So if we want to, because I have become so passionate about it, and that this is something that in my own life I really want to start doing more of and understanding better, is savings and investments. So if whether you are saving and you're just getting started with it, or whether you haven't saved at all, what are some tips that people can use to start saving or to maximize what they've got and to put it in the right places? Where can they start with that?
That's my favorite question. Also, the question that I get asked the most often is, where do I start in saving, or where do I start to invest? Now, what we need to take into consideration is first the difference between the two. So saving is more short term. Pre-COVID life, it would be if you want to go on a holiday, don't finance it on your credit card, please. Like, save for that holiday and put the money away in an account where you obtain interest, whether it's with a bank or in the money market fund. But it's short-term goals. For our longer-term goals, and I'm talking, let's say 5 years plus, we will start taking to look at investments. And the reason I'm saying investments, or I recommend it, is because our investment term is longer, so we can afford to or stomach a bit of risk, high risk, or more risk, more return at the end of the day. And we take a look at unit trusts, because it's also important that your investment term and your investment objective, that they correlate and chat to one another. So obviously I've got a contract with Sanlam, so I'm going to punt the solutions that we've got. Punt maybe being the incorrect word, but look at something like satrix.co.za, where it's a passive asset manager, and you can start investing there with a recurring debit order. And that's the other thing, be intentional about it. Create that debit order so that it does go off automatically. Like, you don't have to EFT it still, or if you've got money saved, invest a lump sum. Or look at something, if you want to get into shares a bit, look at easy equities. That's another example that you can, and it's so easy. You download the app, you register yourself with the necessary documents, and you purchase shares via easy equities. So that would be my recommendation, but it's very important that you get like proper and sound financial advice as well, because we can't and especially now, this is such a good example. If you invested and you were invested in the wrong funds, and now the market got hurt now with COVID and everything that's going on globally, it's important that your investment, that you know what your investment goals and objectives are.